Hi, you are listening to the Conflict and Development in Africa podcast. This podcast is for policymakers, governments, researchers, students, businesses, and anyone that is interested in conflict and development issues in Africa. On this podcast, we hear from experts from across Africa and the world. Your host, Dr. Michael Nwankpa, will ask the questions you would want answers to. Michael Nwankpa has an extensive experience spanning over a decade studying, researching, writing, and consulting on conflict and development issues in Africa.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Conflict and Development in Africa podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Nwankpa. Today, we're going to be discussing the prospects of youth, of Africa's teeming youth population. And I'm joined by a very special guest, Dr. Kayode George. Dr. George is currently lecturer at the National Institute for Cultural Orientation in Nigeria. He's also associate lecturer at the Redeemed Christian Bible College and former head of department at the Department of Security, Peace and Conflict Studies at Caleb University, all in Nigeria. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you join me, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much, Coordinator Dr. Mike. Thank you very much for bringing me in for the program. Good afternoon, viewers. Hello, Nigerians.
Brilliant. Let's start off with this. So, in the continent, in the African continent, the continent is known as the youngest in terms of having the youngest population. So, people below 20, we have the median age of the African continent population is under 20. So this is often seen as a prospect. Some people also see it as a threat. Can you explain that paradox?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's both ways. It's an opportunity if we harness it very, very well. There are benefits in having a younger population in the society because they are energetic, they are expressive, they want to explore, so they have the future look. So if we explore it very well, it's an advantage. But unfortunately, in Africa, you're not using it well. We don't create a space for them. Okay, how do I mean? In Nigeria, for instance, we have most of our leaders in their 50s and 60s and 70s without any for the younger ones. Yes, we say we want to create space for them, but it's in the policy, not practically speaking. If you look at our office holders in Nigeria, they are mainly in their 60s and their 70s. Okay, and so that is discouraging to the younger ones. They're not giving them hope that we have a chance in this country. Okay, and that's why you see they are flying, they are going out of the country where they find expression, where they find space, where they find fulfillment. Okay, but it's a threat because we are not finding expression here, as it were. I'm a father too. My kids, my children are all in the age range. So they're not finding expression here. So what they do, if you're not careful at families and churches and mosques, is to take to drugs and all these evil vices. And so it becomes a threat. In the northern part, for instance, I did my PhD on religious conflict. And I say in my thesis that I talked about the Nigerian population too. It's an advantage. I said that when people are idle in their young age, when they are very energetic, when they're very expressive, when they're very explorative, so they become easy tool easily recruits for violence, for war. Old men can't fight war. They can only plan. So the younger one with energy that can risk their life is in that age range. So they become easily recruited into crime, into all sorts of evil vices because they cannot find expression to fulfill their destiny, they fulfill their ideas. So it's more of disadvantage in Nigeria, in Africa, than advantage. Is an advantage.
We've seen in the last, I want to say in the last maybe 20 years, if I'm looking at from the Arab Spring coming to 20 years now, we've seen some sort of what we can call a shift in orientation. We've seen some sort of awakening among the youth, where we've seen protests with the Arab Spring. If you come to Nigeria, we saw in 2012, we saw the occupation of Nigeria. Then in 2020, we saw the NSAT, which largely led by youth. In Kenya, we've been seeing on and off. We've been seeing the protests against the IMF imposed structural adjustment programs there against the financial bill. We saw in Mozambique. So are we beginning to see a shift where the youth are rising up to demand or to establish their stance in the scheme of things?
Oh yes, yes. We can see that. I can see that the youth are beginning to speak out. They begin to express themselves in that line that they want to be heard. They want to speak against bad governance. They want to speak against evil of society. Yes, that's fine. That's okay. It's coming up. For instance, in Nigeria, in the last election, we saw a part of that when the youth supported a candidate saying that they want a change. So we saw that in the last election in Nigeria. So they are beginning to find a platform, find a way to express themselves, even though the voice was eventually suppressed, like in the last NSAS violence protest, it was eventually suppressed and they ran away. But you can't suppress a voice for too long. It's a matter of time, it will come up again, like the voice of Abel crying for revenge.
I like how you introduce that into all of that. And like I said to people, change is never sudden. Even though people would say change is sudden, change is always gradual. It's a gradual process, and it's always a matter of time. And in the Nigerian setting, we were both political scientists. We see how the elite have been able to use ethnicity, use religion, and use all these fault lines to maintain their stranglehold on power. But we've seen again that in the last 60 years since many African countries gained independence, whereas the narrative then would be anti-colonial narrative. The generation, the youth of this are far removed from that colonial narrative or anti-colonial, post-colonial narrative. And we're beginning to see that break from that narrative. We saw it in Botswana, where there is a new the party that has been there for long lost power. We're seeing such tension, such challenge even in Zimbabwe, in many of these places. But again, the irony of it, which are also another paradox, is in other places like in the Sahel, we're seeing where there is a kind of support for military rule. So we've seen where on one hand people are saying, "Oh, France needs to go," or the leaders, but then again they're supporting dictatorship. Can you explain that? I don't know if it's an irony or if it's a paradox.
Well, like you said, change is not gradual. It's not immediate. It's not sporadic. It's gradual, and we are coming to that with time. I remember I saw a video maybe yesterday or day before yesterday showing Tanzanian presidents going with over 100 vehicles in a convoy. I mean, how can we be happy as a people to see that in a country of about less than 70 million people, according to the video, and you're having a convoy of over 100 cars, exotic cars, just for the president. And we don't see them in the US, in the European countries. We don't see all this kind of waste and all that. So build up again in the mind of the younger ones who are the owner of the future anyway. They are the owners of the future you are talking about. So and they want their futures to be assured for them. So they are going to speak out. They're going to continue to speak out from time to time until they're able to overtake the situation and they speak their voice. Concerning the military, endorsing military rule, well, that's the option that seems to them that is working for now. They have seen the young presidents in Africa who are generals, who are military officers, who are doing well, who are not wasteful, and who are developing the country, the economy. And so they will kind of support it because it's giving them hope to have the kind of future they want to have. The kind of life they live, the people live in Europe, in America, they see that these people can give them that kind of life. And so they will support it. Of course, globally, democracy is the order of the day. But if democracy is not working for all, if the military that is working, why not? If the military will help us to sort out things, implement a system that will give us a good life, why not? So in a way, I won't blame them for supporting military rule because it's giving them what they want. It's giving them hope for the kind of future they want to have. So I won't blame them. But if we have a civilian government that's giving them that too, they will support. For instance, in South Africa, when Mandela was there, Mandela has a popular support because he was a selfless leader, and so he received a popular support, even globally. So if we have that kind of leader across Africa, then we don't have a problem. But we're not having them. We have selfless, self-centered, and sometimes focusless. Permit me to use that word. I mean, recently in Nigeria, we are hearing that salaries of some people want to be increased when the majority are suffering. This is not the time to do that. And this will aggrieve youth who are jobless, who even when they're having a job to do, salary cannot even do much for them. And I was like I told you before the interview started, suddenly last week we discovered that rate for data has been increased by almost 50 or 70% without any announcement. It affects everybody. And the youth who are jobless, who are not really working, and those who are working, it affects them. The bills are rising and the income is just the same. So if the country will be the one that will stabilize the economy in a particular country and people are supporting them, why not? Why not?
There's something you mentioned,
Thank you.
and I've been looking at that in my current work, where I'm beginning to assess or reassess or rethink our adoption of liberal democracy. By liberal, like Riley said, democracy is the order of the day, but democracy is not homogeneous. The African had democracy before the West came. But when we talk about democracy, we often talk about liberal, neoliberal kind of like democracy. So if we look at in Africa, even though we thought that democracy might have failed, we've also seen in recent times some, like you mentioned with the Nigerian case, the last election, you mentioned a third force that challenged the usual, usually have these two forces. So we had the third force that came and challenged our system. In Sierra Leone or Senegal, we had the young president, the youngest president in Africa, came in after a lot of issue with that election in that year. So we can say, we have mixed results of what democracy is. So I guess my question is, if I look at also what you're saying in terms of the disparity in So I say, for instance, Ngozi Okonjo, Ngozi Iweala, recently had some sort of a positive outlook of the
Yeah.
Tinubu's. Ngozi had a positive outlook of the
Go-
Tinubu's economy in terms of, like, stabilizing the economy. But you pit that against the millions, hundreds of millions of Nigerians that are living in abject poverty and all of that. That is so. Are we challenging? Are we actually saying that should we be looking for a new system? Is it a systemic problem? And is that what the youth should be fighting for? How can they fight for that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, in my own uh, understanding, in Nigeria, there is no system. And that's where we have our problems. We have the laws, but there is no system. Now, so even if the Tinubu government is trying to put together, give us a system, it will take time to mature. It will take time to begin to yield benefit to the people. But what they should have done was to look for something to give to the masses while we are expecting the result of the reforms and all that policy and all that. It's not that you leave us in the dark while we are still waiting and waiting. And the people in government are living large. We can see them every day. They live large. Now, my only fear is that after all said and done, after
Mm,
4 years or 8 years, are we not going to go back to the rot that we thought we are trying to correct with the new government that will come after him? I only also hope that after a while, he will not tell us, like Buhari, I tried my best. The powers that be prevented me from doing what I thought I would be do. When Buhari came in, all of us had a very good hope that he will put things right. But
mm,
some years down the line, well, he was to be assassinated. They wanted to kill him, blah blah blah, and so he had to drop his ideas. Okay, if that's what you want, go ahead and do it. So I only hope this one will not end like that. That I tried my best, but people didn't allow me to achieve my good intentions.
mm. You said something earlier. You said something about the NSAS protest, and you said something about they were suppressed and they couldn't achieve it. Uh, this question is going to be twofold. What ways were they, what strategy do you think the elites have used to suppress the youth voice? And how can the youth, the second leg of the question, how can the youth successfully, I don't want to use the word protest, but successfully challenge or create a new
Challenge.
system, or challenge, yeah, the existing prevalent system?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Well, I would say that on the part of the youth, they started well. But like I
Mm,
said here, the system. There should be a system of handling protests on the side of the protesters and the government. So after a few days, the, the protesters actually went beyond their borders. They became
mm,
destructive, they became violent somehow, even though they would deny it. It's an act of violence for you to block a public road for other users to use. It's an act of violence. Then to even go ahead and begin to destroy things is an act of violence. Of course, they will not agree to it. Of course, they were provoked to do that. But again, it's not enough for them to destroy public properties. It's also the act of violence on the part of governments to order shoot at sight to our young ones, our future, our tomorrow. It's an act of violence. So on both sides, there were acts of violence. But however, two wrongs cannot make a right. Okay, the
mm,
government could actually make arrest without killing anybody. It's possible. That's why they are trained. You could arrest people. There are ways to douse tension without shooting, without killing.
mm,
That's what they are trained to do. So if the youth became violent, the government couldn't have been that violent again. by shooting innocent people. They have a way of going for the right people, the people they wanted to arrest them. So having said that, we can learn a lesson from Nelson Mandela and from uh, Martin Luther. It took them years to achieve their aim, but they achieved it. Okay, so that's why there's no system. If the system is there, uh, what we want in Africa, our idea is when we start something, we want the person that started it to be the one that will achieve it, to conclude it. Whereas that's not the way. Martin Luther said, I knew that one day there will be freedom. So he knew in his head that he might not be the one to witness the freedom, but he went ahead to fight silently. So, and that's the difference between us and them. We want to start something now and want to be the one to. Let me also digress a little. There was a day I was traveling from Ibadan to Ibadan with my friend, and he was telling me that all these companies from beggar to down to middle toll gates, you see companies both sides, left and right. They are owned by Chinese foreigners. He said, do you know that that's their own plan? That the man that bought this land 50 years ago, 20 years ago, knew that he would not be the one to build the company. So he came down here, bought the land, secured the papers, and took it back home and give to his family. I've bought the land. Maybe his son will be the one to come to lay the foundation, and the son will know that he might not be the one to finish the building. So the people in the company now may be the third generation of the people that bought the land, that had the vision. And you see, so it's transgenerational. And so we want to do things and we want to achieve it. And so that's why become a bit violent because we want to see result now. Unlike the well organized societies, they know they may not achieve the result now. And they lay the foundation and they give the baton to the families, to the young generation coming behind. And you see them displaying the photograph of their fathers who bought the land, who laid the foundation in their honor on the building, on the company there. And so what we do here is just, like I said, we're in a rush to achieve results, and so we become violent because we are hasty.
This is how I interpret that. And I want you to comment further. So talking about the system, because you keep saying there's no system, and people might not understand what you mean by system. So I guess what you're saying, and what I wanted to comment on is institutions. So whereas in the West, where there are institutions that are bigger than an individual. So a president comes, a prime minister comes, that institution is bigger. You start off, you go, that institution still remains. But in Africa, so I want to relate that to what we have. One in the Sahel, we have a young military captain that's taken over in Burkina Faso. That's not like a symbol of hope or symbol of change to everyone in Africa. Now, we have also in different African countries, we have old men that are holding on to power. They've been there for decades. We have in Ivory Coast for now, the 82-year-old president wants to run a fourth time, having manipulated the constitution. In Cameroon, we have Paul Biya, has been there for over 40 years, trying to run again. He's 90-something. We have in Rwanda, we have in all of these places. So, and then they say, oh, the change, I have to be there to do the change. So is what you're saying, is this what you're saying, that we need to create a system whereby you do your bit, you go, and that system runs itself? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look at the US, for instance. I'm not too familiar with the system over there, but from what we can get, it's like, if it's Labour Party this time, maximum you get your 2 times 8 years, and they deliberately want a change to another party that will give them a fresh idea. So you probably cannot say more than 8 years in those countries, because the thing is that they have a change. I remember during the time of Clinton and who else was that now, they said, well, between the two devils, we have to choose somebody. They choose somebody that allow you to mess around, do your good. After your 2 times, they will automatically go for another party to give them fresh ideas. So if we have that, like for instance, now we have been toying with the idea of, okay, now we have a partial system in place, rotational, north, west, east, like that. Even at that, when the time of the south, the north still contest. They say it's not sacrosanct. During the time of the north, the south will still protest. If the system is there shouldn't be anybody coming from the other side. If you have said this time is for the north, let it be for the north. There should not be any other person from any part of the country to contest under any guise, under any whatever allegation or any calculation or whatever. Now they're saying to wanted a third term, like Obasanjo. But it's still a bit slow. Now again, we are talking about maybe one term. So let us do one thing and establish it. If it's a one term 6 years, let it be so. Because when it's not my turn, I want to get you out of it, and I begin to manipulate and say, okay, now we want 1 year, we want 2 years. It's because it's not my turn. If I am there, I want my 2 times. I want to establish it. So let us agree that henceforth is either 2 times for one person or one party, after let another person come, or one term of 6 years or 8 years, and let us rotate it and let it be respected both now, in the future, and forever. Then we have a system. You also know that even in the university system, even in every institution that we mentioned, when you have an MD or a DG or whatever, when the past leadership or whatever has something doing, they will say that is their own idea. I'm coming with my own. There's no continuity. Look at Tinapa in Calabar. It's been abandoned. So painful. A lot of money was paid, spent in that project, wonderful project. But because it's not their dream, they abandoned it. And everything is just wasting away. So painful. And so that's what I mean by system. If a government has done something, the new government should continue it. If there's going to be a change, let it be a small change. Just move on with that. We've lost so much money. Let me pause here for a while.
There's something I want to say. Speaking of institution, so thank God your university done. You know, I'm also an academic. And in Nigeria, growing up in Nigeria as well, growing up in Nigeria, in the 80s up until the 90s, you know, education was solid. I'm a Lagosian by conception and by growing up. And in Lagos, we went to primary school, local primary school, government primary school, and they were solid. That's where we went to. I went all public school.
Yes.
But now there is no public school. Everybody is sending their children to private school, not out of choice, but there's no public school. And then we come to the university. Back in the days that I'm aware of, when you go to the university, it is by the time you even finish, there's work for you, and it was solid education.
Yes.
So I guess my question is,
Yes.
what is your critique of our educational system and how it's contributing to the rot and producing the kind of youth we have, and you know?
Thank you very much. I went to University of Education, so I read education. Now, in my lifetime, I have witnessed 3 different educational structure. We started from 6 years in primary school, 5 years in secondary school, 4 years in the university. That's 6-5-4. Now we changed to 6-3-3-4 to support education. Now we want to go back to 6 something. They don't want to collapse the other. So we don't have a solid idea. Anybody will just come in and say, okay, this is what we should be doing now. Pushing aside what we have been doing, we've not even built that one to a certain level to even know if it's going to be good for us or not. We are going back to technical education now. The new government is now talking about technical education, giving priority to it. So you see, that's also affecting us. It's affecting us. It's not giving us an idea of what it should be and how it should be. Now they're talking about university age, 18 years, 16 years. Let us have an idea. In all those countries we are copying, they have a standard. You can't get admitted into university until you are 18. So here in Nigeria, we keep going forward, moving backwards, going forward. So it's not good for our development. Now, when I was a HOD, head of the department, minimum points to graduate. A few years before I left Caleb, she came up with another standard that must be this points to graduate. Now, if people, when I was HOD, when I was dean of college, a student from our university applied to Canada and they wrote us to explain why somebody graduated with this number of points to graduate. As that's the we were running then. And it didn't tally with their own system, so they queried it. So I also discovered that I finished with about 130 something points to graduate. It's not up to what they require in Europe. They require 180 points for undergraduate. So I think we should just try to streamline all our system to tally with what the standard is, so that we can have, because we are still going there to compete and to continue life, for the young one to continue life. And so that's why when you travel, you say Nigerian certificate is not well, this is not well that. So it's because there is no standard like that, and we are not standing by our standards. We should either it's working or feeling. Let's stand by it. It will work one day if we maintain it. Work one day. So if it fails for a while, it's not enough for us to abandon it and start something new. Let us know why is it not working. Why are we failing? Why is it not growing? Let's stay with it and grow it, and let's become our standard. The young ones coming up will meet it that way. They would leave it that way. Other people will leave it that way. Unlike, it's not good to change from here to here. I've seen a lot of changes in government since I've been in government. I was a personal assistant to government to the government office. So there is no standardized standard operation. There is no standard policy. We keep changing, and so we just maintain one and focus on it. Now, government is now saying that for underage students who did JAM, who performed well, under 16, they want to give them space. No. If you are saying under 16 cannot get into university, maintain it. Forget the issue of their complaints. People complain to me. The parents still call me. I say, sir, why are you in a hurry to get your daughter of 16, 15-year-old into university? If he graduates at 18, 19, who will employ him or her? At 17 or 18, who will employ him? Where will he work? It's not matured work. So now government is shifting to attend to those who are complaining that our children did well, give them space. Don't let them discourage. We don't want to discourage them. There are other things they can do. They can do JUPEP. They can stay at home. My friend's sister stayed at home for 1 year for being underage in those days, like you mentioned. She was at home for 1 year, not doing anything, and she didn't feel bad about staying at home for 1 year.
They do it here. They have here. They call it gap year. So that gap year, you see them. They will go to the industrial world, or they travel to go and teach or get life experience. Because I say university is for mature. It's not about just being book smart. You need to be matured. You need to be emotionally, mentally ready to do that. But before I come to the last question, you mentioned something about our kids. You've mentioned it in some of your talk. Our kids, youths are living abroad. They are competing abroad. Some are living. So having brain drain. How does the brain drain affect our development in the continent?
Table.
That's fine. That's fine. So I was saying, how does the brain drain affect the continent's development and all of that? That is yeah. How does it affect it?
Ah, that's a big question. It will affect us when your best brains are traveling out of your country, and so we are left with dregs. I mean, for using that language, for that choice of words. When your best
Hmm.
people are being employed abroad, are attracted abroad, and so we are left with people who can't, even if they are even if they are good, they are left to do a lot of work. A lot of work. Go to government hospitals, you see queues of patients waiting to see doctor. In universities now, we have we have very few hands who are
Hmm.
experienced as in teaching and such, because some of them have gone abroad. When I was in the university, a young lecturer would be attached to a senior lecturer to mentor him
Hmm.
in teaching and in research. We
Hmm.
hardly do that any longer. So the younger ones are left to learn alone, to grow alone. How can you grow alone in academics, in writing, in publication, and in teaching?
Hmm.
I remember when I was in school, we they used to employ copper as a graduate assistant. So when they were
Hmm.
teaching, we come to class once in a while to see how they were teaching. They were giving tutorials to handle, to teach us to manage tutorials. That's no longer a good. We no longer do tutorials. Everything is lecture, 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 lecture. So it's really affecting the quality of what we do, not only in teaching, even in the industry. Bankers are
Hmm.
going, lawyers are going, doctors are going. So who are the ones that will mentor the young ones, even if they are endowed academically, if they are intelligent,
Hmm.
if they are smart? See, need the older ones with experience to
Hmm.
train them. During surgery, the medical students will go to the theater with the professors to teach them, and even post surgery, they will still explain to them.
Hmm.
I remember my
Hmm.
son died in those, and they used the corpse to teach medical students. Why did this boy died? They used him. We were there at the morgue, telling the students why that boy died because of this and that and that. And so you can't buy that one. It can't be said in the classroom. So the brain drain is affecting us, even in the industry, like in the industry, it's affecting us. So, and I think one of the reasons is because Nigerians are one of the most poorly paid civil servants in the world.
Hmm.
So, if the government can do something about remuneration, about welfare, people will stay. What are we looking for? It's a normal life, simple, good life, quality of life. If we get it
Hmm.
here, what are we looking? We just go abroad for holiday and come back and return to Nigeria. If you cannot get
Hmm.
it, you are pushed. You want to go out and enjoy the good life.
I like how you
So
said
it's
it because this also solves the issue of migration. And in my writing, when people talk about immigrants, we look at what Trump is doing, we look what Europe is doing, and when we write, we say we that is a half. That's the half of the story. The other half of the story is like the migrants are actually contributing heavily to these societies and depriving the African continent of its stuff. And if the right conditions are provided, they rather stay there because Africa that's labor for Africa. And again, we don't talk about the cheap labor that comes over there and all of that. But let me come to the last question. How do you think we can, because I know when you started, you talked about the youth being an opportunity and also can be seen as a threat. So how do we harness the potential of the African youth for its development, its security, its prosperity? And how do we channel it away from the threat that, contrary to that, the threat that it poses?
thank you very much. Well, like I said, for me, let me focus on Nigeria, my country. For instance, in those days, I knew that every state in Nigeria produced some kind of youth. a natural product. Every state in Nigeria produce something. We abandon all that for oil. Now that the sea to fish in the Niger Delta, rubber in the Niger Delta, there's nobody to go there. Timber in Southwest, gold in Elisha, and several others. So there's nothing for them to do there. And so all the energy is now expended on either crime or social media or japa. You know, if the government can redirect their energies into production, there's something going in the Ekiti State now, where I come from. They are investing so much in agriculture. They have engaged youth, many of them, on the farmland. So I'm thinking by next year, you should be seeing the result of that. So if every state copies that, or do what you can do in your state and engage the youth, either in farming, industry, one of my friends said he went to Maiduguri and saw a rice factory company. Dollars, I don't remember. I say, when you get there in that village, that rice village, there's light 24/7, there's security, life goes on there normally. In Maiduguri, can we replicate that in every other state? Rice production, yam production, whatever production in every state. $2 million. Everything can afford that. And you can see that 10,000 factors will be engaged. And from there, other things will begin to happen instead of focusing only on oil and gas that are occupied by foreigners, so to say. If no foreigner will come, even foreigner will come to the farm, there will be very few. It will be our people who know the terrain, who have the natural, the street wisdom, who know the weather, when rain is falling, when not to plant and not that, who understand the animals in the bush. So if we engage them constructively in those areas, then it's okay. They will stay. Like I said, who wants to go abroad and go inside winter and snow and all those when we have everything. For areas, if you give them fishing trolleys, train them, which I think Jonathan government did that. Send them to South Africa, to train on fishing, engineering, and other. But how many of them did they continue it? No. After the Northern government, nobody continued it. So by now they would have engaged almost a third of their population in that area. Marine engineering, fishing engineering, and all those. Just put them there. Rubber engineering and all that. So we have what it takes. It's just that we just want the easy way out, both the government and the people. We want the easy way out, and there is no easy way out in anywhere. Everything requires hard work, patience, and perseverance.
I agree with you 100%. And your words are aligned with them, aligns with even our last podcast where the guest was talking about Africa should focus on production rather than exporting raw materials. We should have factories. When these external people come, we should make them produce, build those factories, and let those things be produced, and then create jobs for the people and create wealth for the people. So that's an alignment. Well, Doc, I wish we can talk all day, but I have to. We have to stop here, but this is really good. I really appreciate your insight into the subject, and hopefully those that need to hear will hear this and will begin to get the change that we deserve in the continent. Thank you very much, sir, and have a very lovely day.
Thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate you. Bye.
Bye. thank you for tuning in to what a wonderful episode we've had today, talking about the prospects of the teeming African youth population, the prospects and the threats that it presents. Join me as usual to thank our guest, Dr. Kayode George, for his great comments and analysis. For now, stay blessed, and I'll see you next week.